Hello, my friends. Hello, and welcome once again to Stately Von Manor, where Roger and I have returned for my reading report. It's not my weekly reading report because it's been 2 weeks, Roger. It's been 2 weeks. It's been a brutal couple of weeks here at the Manor, and I haven't had very much time to read, let alone make videos. But here we are, Roger, to talk about what I've managed to read in the last couple of weeks. I will break out my list of the 500 book challenge. The challenge where I have to read 500 books that I own before I'll buy any new ones. And where did I leave off? I left off with book number 340, which was Jack London's first short story collection and his first book called The Son of the Wolf. The Son of the Wolf. And if I'm remembering right, the last time I did a reading report, I was 3 stories into The Son of the Wolf, which was an absolutely fantastic collection of short stories based on his experiences as a prospector in the Klondike Gold Rush, which was not a very profitable gold rush for a lot of people. It was a late gold rush, from what I remember. And Jack London didn't make any cash as a prospector, but he came back with a lot of great stories. And those stories can be found in this volume, The Unabridged Jack London. This has a bunch of Jack London's books in it, including The Son of the Wolf. And these unabridged volumes are pretty great. There were a few of these. There was this one, they had Mark Twain, they had Shakespeare, and I think they had Edgar Allan Poe. And they're great books if you get the hardcovers. They made paperback versions of these books, and I've never seen one without a broken spine. You just open it and the spine breaks, apparently. But these hardcovers are great. And I really enjoyed Jack London's first short story collection. It's no surprise at all to me that it launched his career in spectacular fashion. He became the Kipling of the North. And this was the beginning of his superstar writing career, Jack London. And it's no surprise to me, like I said, because these stories are fantastic. It's hard to find stories that better depict human beings facing off against savage weather and an uncompromising environment. It's a wonderful collection of stories. Also, really interesting. You could really tell that this draws upon Jack London's own personal experiences, how he used his experiences and the stories that he was told to fashion these stories. The contact between the prospectors and the Native Americans who lived in the region that they were invading is really interesting. Just fascinating stories. Really solid human stories that can be brutal. I mean, he doesn't pull his punches when he's writing about how difficult it is to survive in this environment. It's great stuff. And I highly recommend this collection of stories, The Son of the Wolf. It was Roger's pick for February for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, which means you can find this collection of stories for free on Project Gutenberg and other places. So you can't get cheaper than free, Roger. And what a great way to start your reading of Jack London, an author I highly recommend. Not enough people read Jack London, and this guy was Robert E. Howard's favorite writer, and that's, I mean, what more can you say, really, than that? He followed this up, Jack London did, with a novel called A Daughter of the Snows, which I've never read. And so that's the book I'm going to be reading from Jack London next. It's not collected in this volume, probably because, from what I understand, it's not a very good book and did not prove to be nearly as popular as his first collection of short stories, The Son of the Wolf. But I will read it because I'm interested. to see what that book is like. I'll have to read an ebook of it because I do not have a physical copy of it, I don't believe. But I have all of Jack London's books as ebooks. And then, since that collection was not so popular, Jack London did follow it up with another short story collection, which is included in this volume, which was called A God of His Fathers, which apparently is just as good as the collection I just read. So I do look forward to that one as well. So that was Jack London. Fantastic. Fantastic, this guy. You should read Jack London. So that was book 340, which I followed up with book 341. Roger, what could that have been? It was more Sherlock Holmes. So it was more Sherlock Holmes. I just recently read A Study in Scarlet, really enjoyed it. So I've moved on to the second Sherlock Holmes book, which was The Sign of Four, also sometimes known as The Sign of the Four. It kind of depends on what edition you're reading. And here is just The Sign of the Four, or The Sign of Four. The second Sherlock Holmes book was the second Sherlock Holmes novel. So it's one of the Sherlock Holmes novels. There were 4 of those, as well as a lot of short stories. And excellent story. I really, really liked it. I've always liked The Sign of Four. I've read it a few times before. And not everybody's favorite Sherlock Holmes story, but I really like it. I would rate it, out of his novels, I would rate it as second best. Of course, The Hound of the Baskervilles is absolutely the best Sherlock Holmes novel. But I think The Sign of Four is really, really good. It's interesting. It starts off with Holmes and Watson at 221 B. Baker Street. And Sherlock Holmes is taking cocaine. So Sherlock Holmes, cocaine addict, vividly depicted in the beginning of The Sign of Four. He needs cocaine, Sherlock Holmes says, when things are boring, because his mind cannot handle boredom. He needs to keep his mind active. So what does he do? He takes cocaine. So he's a drug addict, Sherlock Holmes, which was slightly hinted at in A Study in Scarlet, if I'm remembering right. But you never knew that. Here you know that. And, he takes cocaine in the beginning of the book. And Watson, of course, as a doctor, is saying, what the hell are you doing? You've got to quit this terrible habit. You're going to ruin your brain. Watson, a man of sense. Fortunately, a beautiful young lady shows up, and Sherlock Holmes gets a very interesting case. So he can dispense with the drugs for a while. And this case involves a missing father, a missing treasure, some very interesting characters, the Sholtos, a one-legged sailor, and his savage dwarf companion. There's all kinds of stuff going on in this book. It is an excellent mystery for Sherlock Holmes to solve. And just a lot of fun. Fast-paced, short. It's another short Sherlock Holmes novel. And I think as far as the pacing is concerned, it's a better book than A Study in Scarlet. Perhaps not by much, but it's a better book. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle followed this book up with a series of Sherlock Holmes short stories. And that's when Sherlock Holmes really became popular, when the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes first started showing up in the Strand magazine. Then Sherlock Holmes really took off as a character. And most people think, and I tend to agree, that Sherlock Holmes as a character works better in short story form. The short stories are pretty great. And so the next book I have to read, which is in this big collection, the complete Sherlock Holmes, the next book I have to read is The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, which is a collection of those early Sherlock Holmes stories. Great character. Eventually, Roger, he did kick the habit. Watson helped Sherlock Holmes get off the drugs. But by the end of the Sign of Four, what's he doing? He's done with his case. He reaches for the cocaine. What a junkie. So this was fun. I had a lot of fun with this. It's always fun revisiting Sherlock Holmes. And that was book 341, which brings me to book 342, which was this book. It's Adam Link Robot. Adam Link Robot. There's Adam Link there. This was written by Eando Binder, who was really Otto Binder and his brother. I think Otto did most of the work in this book, but I could be wrong. But yeah, it's the Binder brothers as Eando Binder. And this is a series of short stories that was turned into a novel. So this is a fix-up novel. And at one time, Adam Link was kind of a popular character. And there were comic book adaptations of the Adam Link stories. EC Comics and I think Weird Science adapted some of the early Adam Link stories. So did Warren Publications in Creepy Magazine. They did some adaptations of Adam Link. Also, from what I remember, one of the Adam Link stories was adapted on the television show Outer Limits as I, Robot. Isaac Asimov stole the title I, Robot from the Adam Link stories. And so this fix-up novel, which is a collection of the stories about Adam Link, who is the first sentient robot created. He is the first artificial man. And it's really interesting. And it's a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed these stories. It actually, as a novel, as a fix-up novel, it hangs together really well. It works really well as a novel. Clearly, it's a collection of stories, but it works as like the story of Adam Link's life. And it's pretty wild in that it starts off as a story basically about Adam Link, whose creator dies shortly after he is created. And Adam Link is accused of being his murderer. So we've got a murder trial with Adam Link as the suspect. And the early Adam Link stories are all about Adam Link trying to find his place in human society, and he's trying to be accepted by human beings. And he wants to become an American citizen, and that is fraught with difficulty because of the implications. Adam Link has the secret of creating other intelligent robots. His creator passed that secret on to him. So he can create like an army of robots if he wanted to. And indeed, during the course of this story, he does create another intelligent robot. And also, there are giant robot battles in this story, and there's an alien invasion that comes later. I mean, this book really starts getting kind of crazy as things go on. It starts off as one kind of book and turns out to be another kind, with the Adam Link battling this huge alien invasion at the end. It's a lot of fun. The writing level of this, I would put at about Goosebumps level. This is very much, the writing style is pretty Simple Simon, if you get what I mean. It's fun, it's fast paced, but Binder was a comic book writer. He became a Silver Age comic book writer, and this is very at Silver Age comic book level as far as the writing is concerned. Actually, it would have worked really well as a comic book series. The adaptations that EC did were pretty darn good. And it actually often feels like a comic book. It's, like I said, a ton of fun. If you're a 12-year-old getting into science fiction, this would be an excellent book to start with. Although it is pretty brutal. There's actually a lot of violence in this book, Roger. I was surprised by the level of death and destruction and massacre that goes on, in this book, what with aliens and giant robots and things. But it's a ton of fun. So Adam Link Robot. And that's an excellent cover by I don't know who. I don't know who did this cover. I looked and I can't find it, but it's fantastic. Poor little dog there did not come to a good end, Roger. Sad. Anyway, Adam Link Robot. If you ever find a copy of this lying around, I recommend it. It's a ton of fun. It's just, like I said, goosebumps level writing, which is, not a criticism. It's just, that's just what it is. So that was book 342, which brings me to the last book that I finished, because it's, like I said, it hasn't been a very productive couple of weeks with everything that's been going on. So that brings me to book 343, which is Spider-Man No More. So I am reading every issue of The Amazing Spider-Man from the first run of The Amazing Spider-Man, which ran, if I'm remembering right, from 1962 all the way up to 1998, when the series was renumbered with a new number 1. But this, which has stories from 1966 to 1967, is the beginning of the Romita run, the John Romita run on Spider-Man. After Steve Ditko left the book all upset, John Romita had to pick up the art chores, and what a fantastic job he does. He starts off in the very beginning, and Stan Lee requested this. He requested that John Romita try to draw like Steve Ditko, which he's kind of successful at. You can certainly tell it's not Ditko. It's clearly John Romita. But that's how this book starts, with that request. But it doesn't take long for John Romita to draw like John Romita. And Romita's Spider-Man was so beautiful and so wonderfully done that, this became the way to draw Spider-Man and Peter Parker for like decades. For a long, long time, John Romita's Spider-Man, that was the way to draw Spider-Man. And this collection has some great stories, including Spider-Man No More, the tragic tale where Peter Parker feels sorry for himself and tosses his Spider-Man costume in the trash and dramatically walks away. But by the issue realizes, hey, I really need to be Spider-Man, because by the end of the issue he remembers, oh yeah, with great power comes responsibility. Yeah, I remember that thing. I got to be Spider-Man again. And so he's back. You better believe it. And immediately gets involved with the Kingpin. So these stories have the introduction of the character, the Kingpin, who is fantastic. Great villain. Better known as a Daredevil villain nowadays, actually. But yeah, we get our first introduction to the Kingpin in these issues, who is no pushover, as Spider-Man finds out. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, this was fantastic. The Amazing Spider-Man, 5-star book all the way, right, Roger? Fantastic stuff. And Romita's run only gets better. Still, all of this is still written by Stan Lee at this time. And the next one I have to read is this Epic Collection, Volume 4, which has stories from 1967 to 1968, which continues the fantastic Romita run, including the first Spider-Man full-size magazine, which came out, which was the Spectacular Spider-Man, which was an early magazine version of Spider-Man. Actually, the first issue was in here as well of that. There were only 2 issues of that. And the first issue, I think, was a black and white magazine. Let me see. Yeah, this was the first issue of Spectacular Spider-Man, which was an early black and white magazine of Spider-Man. And it just doesn't work as well in black and white. So they made the magazine later on in color. So that's included in here along with the Amazing Spider-Man issues. So that's going to be fun. I haven't read that stuff in a long time. So I was reading that. What am I reading right now? I seem to have forgotten to bring in the book that I was reading. But right at the very moment, I'm reading, I just started reading Allan Quatermain. by H. Rider Haggard, which is the sequel to King Solomon's Mines, which I read last month. And Alan Quatermain, the sequel to King Solomon's Mines, all about Alan Quatermain, is actually the second book in the Alan Quatermain series. Chronologically, it's the last book. So if you're reading the series in the chronological order of Alan Quatermain's life, this is it. This is the end. But much like Sherlock Holmes, Alan Quatermain was so popular, they had to... Sir Arthur Conan Doyle had to find a way to bring him back. Not Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. H. Rider Haggard. It's early, Roger. So most of the Alan Quatermain series is actually a series of prequels. This story that I'm reading now, Alan Quatermain, is a story when Alan Quatermain is in his 60s. And he suffered a great personal tragedy. He's super rich from the money he got from King Solomon's Mines. But living in England is not for him, especially after this tragedy that he experiences. And so he decides, you know what, I'm going to go back to Africa and have an adventure. And he gets his friends from King Solomon's Mines to join him, and it's another lost world, lost race adventure. And so far, I've only just started it, but so far it's really, really good. We'll see how it turns out. It's been a good long time since I've read that book. So that's what I'm reading at the moment. That's all I have to say for today. I will catch you next time.